As South Africa suffers through stage 6 power cuts, the city of Cape Town continues to forge ahead, we are told, with its plans to make the city less reliant on Eskom. The Democratic Alliance leader, John Steenhuisen, will tomorrow present the party's plan to tackle the electricity crisis. In the meantime, the Western Cape Premier, Winde, held an urgent provincial cabinet meeting yesterday for updates on the province's contingency plan in case of more severe blackouts. While he feels that the Western Cape is prepared, he is calling on Cape Town residents to use electricity sparingly. Premier Winde joins me now for a conversation. Premier, good evening. So you had to convene this special meeting of the provincial cabinet, and I see that it's quite dark where you are. I'm not sure if you've been plunged into darkness by Eskom or it's just a coincidence that we happen to find you in a place where there isn't that much light. But nevertheless, you convened this urgent meeting of your cabinet with what end in mind, Premier, in the wake of these stage 6 power cuts?
Okay, I apologize. I'm actually in a car at the moment, traveling from Tilbach to Woolsley from one meeting to another. But really, what the meeting was about was how do we manage load shedding level 4 to 6 and above when it's at that level that your municipal sewage pump systems are failing, or you can't get water into your reservoirs, whether you've got sufficient diesel in your hospitals across the province, whether there's contingency plans for all of your municipal infrastructure. So it is about looking at the readiness. And of course, the city of Cape Town already does have the capability of 2 levels of load shedding that they can mitigate risk, but not other towns across the province yet. And it's making sure that readiness was there. We were moving generators to different towns so that the sewage systems would work. We were hiving off certain towns so that they could get their water facilities pumped. We'll be holding another cabinet on Wednesday evening to make sure that the readiness and the risks are dealt with during this time. It's critical that you understand your risks and that you can maintain and manage those risks. And we need to do that as a cabinet. We need to do that as a management team here in the Western Cape.
Yeah. And Premier, this is not a conversation that readily comes to mind when we talk about the higher bands of the load shedding stages, the impact on municipal services. I imagine that you calling that urgent cabinet meeting was informed by the reality on the ground. Here in Johannesburg, I just saw an update a short while ago from Johannesburg Water talking about the pump stations that are being affected by the power outages.
Correct. So you must be able to understand where the risks are. What mitigation can you put in place? How can you make sure it's as less or as lower impact on services? For example, if we ran out of diesel and we weren't able to have our generator systems in our intensive care units in our hospitals, you would put those people's lives at risk. So what are your levels of diesel? Have we got enough transport of diesel to some of the rural towns where our clinics and hospitals are? So it really is a management tool, making sure that we're ready, understanding that we can move resources between municipalities. And as I said, we also look at sort of absolute, what happens when we go to level 8, what would the impact be? Do you still have communication between citizens and your ability to communicate? How do you manage through a disaster system? We'll be meeting now on Wednesday night again, and we bring in all mayors, all municipal managers, we bring in the South African Police Services, we bring in the military so that everybody is on the same page dealing with this crisis. And then, of course, the impact on our businesses is unbelievable. And there are certain businesses who cannot operate their businesses at level 4, level 5, or level 6. And what are the systems that we can put in place to try and enable those businesses? So that'll also be on the table on Wednesday again to say, are there any other mitigating measures that we can put in place to protect jobs and the economy at the same time? It's critical that we get these things right, that we find those processes of getting the procurement of new energy into the system. What Christian was talking about now, the Vietnam model, there's already 3,000 at least small embedded generation on rooftops of homes and businesses, are they able to feed into your municipal network? And is that going to give you further relief? How do we get that going quickly? We've got to make sure that we manage this, over the next 3 years. It's going to get worse, in my opinion. So we need to put very big mitigating measures in place, like Cape Town is already doing across all of our municipalities.
Yeah, in fact, Premier, you preempt my question, my last question to you. When we talk about the City of Cape Town, you Premier of the province, but specifically City of Cape Town, and here in Gauteng, it's Ekurhuleni, who are said to be further along in terms of the curve to get as much independence from Eskom as is possible. What does that look like in the Western Cape in terms of megawatts or watts and generating units, all these engineering terms that we've had to learn and learn quite fast under this crisis?
So, I mean, in Cape Town, the municipality has been busy for a few years already with small embedded generation. They've already completed their first round of tender for the 200 or 100 megawatt environment. They're going out again for their next round. They've got other mitigating measures like the hydro plant, the Stenbras Dam hydro plant. So they've got mechanisms in place, and that already, it's not to come, it's already in place. 2 levels of load shedding can be mitigated through the systems in place. And we are ready to go out to tender in a number of our other municipalities. And it is really, how do we speed that up so that we mitigate this risk as quickly as we can? And there's no real quick fix. It's not a switch that we can turn on or off, but we've got to put urgency into the system. We've got to remove those barriers. And we've got to find the ways that we can get energy into our system as quickly as possible. And at the same time, understanding how we're mitigating the risk. When lights go off, crime goes up. How do we manage that? There are lots of issues that we have to face while we are dealing with this dreaded, horrendous situation we find ourselves in with really high levels of load shedding, which is hugely impactful on citizens across this province.
Yeah. All right, I've got to thank you for your time and your insights here on eNCA. That is the Western Cape Premier Alan Winde talking to me there. Still to come here on South